When I was working as a pharmaceutical executive before retiring, I was a great believer in clear objective and goal setting, basically understanding the key performance requirements and the small steps that added up gradually to a big audacious goal. Everything was recorded so we could see and celebrate progress. And in addition, we could adjust as we went along and we could learn from any deviations to the ideal plan. If you get off track, you can work at getting back on track before you get too far off track. I never really thought about using the same approach for running, but I guess it works for any process. Hi, and welcome to the Running Book Reviews podcast, where we review books written for runners, about runners, and by runners to help you decide if you'd like to read the book for yourself. We also hope that listening to us chat about running can help keep you motivated about your own running, or maybe inspire you to try something new. My name's Alan, and with my co-host Liz, we're going to talk today with author Roisin McGettigan-Dumas about the training journal she published with Lauren Fleshman called Believe, Training Journal.
Believe is primarily a tool to help runners log details of their training so they can find patterns that will help them identify what is and isn't working in their training. But it is more than that. The Believe Training Journal also has examples of how pro runners Lauren and Ro fill in their journal, information that can help you bring your performance to the next level, and quizzes to help you identify your personality traits so that you can work with them instead of against them. For example, I discovered that there are two types of athletes: worriers and warriors. Both can be successful, but they need to have different strategies. A little bit about the authors. Lauren Fleshman found running at age 13 as an adventurous, scrappy tomboy looking for a place to belong. She has won 5 NCAA titles, 15 All-American honors, USA championships, and international competitions. She has represented Team USA many times, finishing as high as 7th in the world amid many years of injuries and setbacks. She lives in Oregon with her 2 kids, Jude and Zadie, and is partnered with filmmaker Eva Moss. Roisin, who we'll be speaking with today. Roisin McGettigan-Dumas grew up running the beaches, trails, and roads of Wicklow, Ireland. She has a 4-time All-American in track and field at Providence College, competed in the steeplechase at the 2008 Olympics, and was retroactively awarded the bronze medal in the 1500 meters from the 2009 European Indoor Championships. She enjoys coaching at her kids' school and juggling family life with her husband Miles and children Hope, Ava, and Rory.
I think so. It's a Gaelic spelling.
Oh.
We've got both of those recorded, so I'll edit the one in the...
You're gonna pick the best one. So welcome to the podcast, Roisin. And I guess first question that we usually ask everybody is how did you first write this book? And also, it is like a 10-year anniversary release of this journal. So what would be different for people that have been maybe buying the previous version?
Yeah, great. Thanks for the question. Thanks for having me on. I suppose the first edition of the Believe Training Journal came about when myself and Lauren Fleshman were friends, and we were interested in sharing kind of like sports psychology behind our running performances. We were both competing at world championship level, and we felt like Lauren had an interest in a really good blog at the time. I think it's probably like the best running blog at the time. And people kept asking her about her nutrition and her training, and she was like, all this information is out there, but actually the things that have helped me be successful was kind of the psychology behind it and getting my mindset right. And I had the same kind of feelings about my own performances. I was the world championship finalist and Olympic finalist. And we were like, oh, it'd be so cool to do something in kind of sports psychology background. And I always kept a training journal since I was a teenager. And I felt like it was my one thing, like, okay, you need your sneakers, you need a watch, and you needed my training journal. Like the kind of similar three things I needed
Yeah.
as a runner.
I feel also like that would have been like kind of before Strava and all this stuff. Like people didn't have Garmin's and things, so it was really that was record keeping.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And it was really motivational, like, to see what training you've done or to set some goals and work towards them. I felt like it was really formative for me as a teenager, and helped me achieve some goals at like Irish school championships and achieve a scholarship. And then I kept it up through college, and beyond, and kind of it was like something I would refer to when I was like getting nervous before competition, or in the waiting room, or like driving somewhere night before, all those kind of vulnerable periods before a race competition. Kind of looking at your training diary and seeing, okay, I'm prepared, I have done the work, maybe seeing writing down an inspirational quote in there. So anyways, we figured, this is a cool thing that we could, do our own version of that. I used to always like take a blank one and make my own kind of custom one. And we decided to like self-publish the first edition, and then we kept selling through those really quickly. So then, after a couple of thousand copies of those, I was like, why don't I just like send it in something to a publisher? And I did, and then Velo Press at the time kind of came around and said, yeah, I would be interested. So that's when we created the Believe Training Journal, and it's kind of half training journal and half kind of essays of kind of anecdotal kind of stories, and also kind of some more sports psychology and different things that we've learned and wanted to share over different topics, body image or nutrition or mindset. So yeah, that's how we kind of first started. And then that kind of took off. Like, this was even actually people had Stravas and trackable watches and all at this time 10 years ago. But I noticed myself when I first got one of the GPS watches, I found myself kind of becoming like very data driven, and like
Yeah.
it took
Hmm.
me out of myself. So like an easy run, I would be like, well, it's not fast enough, it should be faster. And actually found the watches to really throw me off and throw me out of like what had worked for me. And I actually had an experience of overtraining, because I was overanalyzing every run.
Hmm. Yeah.
um my profession, so I wanted to like, oh, this has to be better, this has to be better, and it actually kind of interrupted my whole kind of flow that I'd known for so many years in advance of that. So I just felt like, it's very important for people to stay in touch with themselves, and you can be really honest and vulnerable in your training journal, and not necessarily have to share that with the
Yeah.
world. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, I just think it was more important to have that private space to kind of check in with how you feel, and kind of get down. If you're having like a series of really hard, like tired days, you need to like notice that and kind of check in with yourself, what else is going on in your life, things like that. That is very important. It's very self kind of reflective exercise, and that's kind of more important than times on a watch, at some
Yeah.
point. Uh,
It's funny you should say that because we were talking with I think it was Matt Fitzgerald um
mm,
about how to run your best race and pacing, and there's a whole chapter in that on tech, the
mm,
rise of technology, and the fact that
mm,
now everybody has a watch to tell them what their pace is. Nobody
Hmm.
actually spends time trying to feel their pace,
mm,
and that people are actually in
mm,
some ways poorer runners because they have more data,
mm.
because they're relying on the watch to tell them. The
Yeah.
joke that you see on the email is, "Did you have fun? I don't know. My Garmin doesn't tell me that." Um,
Yeah, that's a funny one.
Yeah.
um, is it is that kind of the same? Is that what you're saying? That's
Yeah,
kind
I
of the
mean
same with the
that's from my
journaling. You can put back maybe what you're forgetting with
yeah.
Strava or Garmin.
Yeah, yeah, and you're kind of going off like how you feel like on your runs rather than like a programmed pace, I remember kind of being thrown like I couldn't believe it one day. I was talking to a guy who's just like an average local runner, and he told me that like he didn't do his long run because he forgot his watch. So he like skipped a group run with like 20 people to go get his watch and then go back and get because if it wasn't on his watch, it wasn't like it's
Didn't
recording.
count.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Yeah, that's I find that's the
Oh,
extreme, but like
yeah.
I'm kind of surprised to hear that, but at the same time not really surprised.
Yeah. Right. And there are so many people would talk about like, oh, I have to round up the exact number of like 5 miles, it has to be 5.00. And then like doing all these like little extra little runs and runs and then maybe like getting a stress fracture or something, just getting so kind of um worried about these numbers and kind of focusing on that rather than actually, are you tired? How are you recovering? How are those energy levels? Because there's this nuances that kind of go with training. Like you're always in this kind of gray zone of energy, like depletion and like energy levels. And what's a safe zone and what's a dangerous zone is kind of hard to spot the difference between the two. 50 shades of gray. 50
Hmm.
shades of, yeah, as me and Molly Huddle call it. We're just like, I'm tired, but like, what's too tired?
Yeah.
What's appropriate tired? And you're really the only one that can answer that. So like, I think when you get kind of caught up with the watches and plans and stuff, it can take you out of that. And look at, an interesting, you know, a story around one of a top professional runner in the US I know, Emily Sisson. She ran like one of the American records. I don't know if it was in the marathon or the half marathon, and she didn't wear a watch at all. Like she just throws the watch away because she knows the feeling that she's looking for and the pace she's looking for. And she does work with pacemakers and stuff, which is great. They help her, but she just stays so in tune with how she's feeling.
Yeah.
And I think people need to know that that's such an important thing. And that's happening at the top level. So I think we should always look
Yeah.
at, what the best are doing and kind of learn from that.
Do you take caffeine when you run? Lots of people do because it's in gels and stuff. And caffeine's legal and it's been proven to work. There's actual science that shows that it improves your endurance running performance.
And there's anecdotal data from when you have your coffee in the morning and you go for a workout versus when you forgot to have your coffee or you didn't have time and you went for a workout and it was terrible.
And the trouble with coffee is there's a lot of liquid just to get your caffeine dose.
Yeah, so then you have to stop for the bathroom mid-workout. Very impractical. Which is where Caffeine Bullet comes in.
What's caffeine bullet, Liz?
It's a caffeine supplement. It's wrapped up like in a candy. So, and it tastes like candy. And you can get 100 milligrams or 85 milligrams, which is about a cup of coffee, but without the liquid.
So we've tried the mint flavor and the chocolate orange flavor, and they're both pretty yummy.
If you want to try them for yourself, we do have a 20% off discount code. So go to the link in the show notes and you can check out what Caffeine Bullet is and get your 20% discount.
Pretty generous.
It is pretty generous.
And we'll get a small benefit, so you're helping out the
Speaking of which, back to the podcast. Yeah, I know that. So when I ran cross country, cross country, you could run a lot of races in a season. It's not like a marathon. So you got a lot of tries at it, and
Mhm.
sometimes like I would just feel, the pack went out too fast, and I would end up going out, in the last, let's say, in the last 25% of the field. Like you'd see me, but I would finish in like the top 10%.
Mhm.
So it was interesting because then the whole time I was passing people, and so I think
Mhm.
it was either a teammate or it was my coach at the time had told me, well, what if you went out faster? Then you wouldn't have to pass all these people.
Mhm.
But the problem is I'd have to go out so fast that then actually like I couldn't maintain that. So I
Mhm.
didn't actually end up placing as well.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
so it's interesting because yeah, it's there's like a feeling you're looking
so that
for.
kind of speaks to your psychology, doesn't
Well,
it? Really, to like you don't feel good about being too aggressive, whereas some people are like more aggressive and
yeah, except I
they
wonder,
wanna they wanna be right out of battling with the people at the front from the start.
yeah, whereas like I don't know, I never liked the whole elbows thing at the front. So like I was very happy to just, I go out in wherever I'm at and then like I just like I prefer to just, pass one or two people at a time without having to like worry about my ribs being jabbed by someone's elbow because I'm like at the front. Like I just don't like that. Alan is looking at me and laughing because he's like completely the opposite.
Well, I think there's something to be said what you're saying though. Like you've got the courage and trust in yourself that you will come through. And it's like there's something really positive about passing people in a race that like psychologically you're like going forward, rather than going
Hmm.
out so fast and kind of hitting your threshold and then struggling the whole race. So, it's just sometimes people don't have the courage to like hold back and do that. And like, so, if you're running smart, that works for you. It's like it
But could
might
it
be the
also
opposite
be
of
that
somebody
there's
else.
like you have to match like your psychology with your strategy? Like so
Mhm.
let's say for Alan, Alan seems to always go out too fast in a race. His first kilometer of a 5K is like, I don't know, 20 seconds too fast, which is huge in a 5K for 5K pace. But I don't know, that's his strategy. He runs well like that.
So yeah, and so it's it's like there's different ways, and that's a really bad expression, but there's different ways to skin a cat. My
Yeah.
coaches. But like this,
Yeah.
it's just knowing that like there's different, what's better for you and helps you have a better run. So yeah.
How much effort you're going to have to put into a journal to get how much benefit do you think? Because the first thing the resistance thing for people who are listening to this is, oh, I'm not going to have to, do a whole load of homework. I just want to go out and run.
Yeah, so I mean, I could think you can do it as simply as like 2 3 minutes in a
Yeah.
day. So and actually, I was so interested when I came across this study the one time that said when you actually write down what you did in a gym session or training session or whatever, it actually gives you a second little boost of
Hmm.
dopamine or good
Yeah.
feeling because
You live it
Oh,
twice.
and we definitely
yeah.
like that.
Because you're kind of giving
Hmm.
yourself the credit for what you've done. And a lot of times
Hmm.
people don't slow down enough to kind of acknowledge what they actually have done. And by taking a little moment, the end of your day, or kind of finding a time in your routine that actually works. A lot of times used to ask people when they used their journal, a lot of times people would pair them with some things. I would do it when I'm having my coffee, or I do it right before I go to sleep, or whatever. Or but some people kept it in their bathroom, and as they brushed their teeth, they would write it in their journal. Um, Me, I'd keep it by my bedside, but other people, like I said, coffee or whatever, and it's just a daily little activity where they kind of did the thing, kind of log it in, and it makes
Hmm.
them kind of reflect and think, okay, getting kind of credit for that. It's like you're registering it somewhere in your body or your mind that like you've done this thing, and that can be a really good, satisfying feeling. So, if you're looking for a little dopamine, extra dopamine, keep a journal. It can be very simple. And I think sometimes the simpler the better, right? You can sometimes I remember my friends would start off, I'm going to do color code this and I'm going to do all this stuff and I'm
Yeah.
going to,
Hmm.
I'd fall into that trap myself,
And you
stickers
can't
and
sustain
everything.
it.
Yeah, that's not sustainable. I've tried.
No, no. So sometimes it's just that little daily bit. It's kind of like mileage and stuff, right? That
Yeah.
one great week of training isn't going to do anything for you, but
Mm.
like it's the daily, like, daily, over time. And now you have a body of your training to look back on. You have a season of your training and you can actually learn a lot about yourself. You can see like there's kind of ups and downs, there's different cycles, there's different what's too much, like what you responded to, what you didn't respond to, different things like that you can kind of track. And like, for women it's good for tracking menstrual cycles, good for tracking different things going on like colds or sicknesses, and kind of reckon, oh, there was I doing a lot too much training those couple of weeks, or was other life events, kind of bringing those in, and not
Yeah.
separating like your work life or your social life. If somebody has a big wedding going on and then they're trying to do a race the same weekend, next weekend, it's like
Hmm.
you're not really setting yourself up to be successful, where you can kind of map it all out and integrate it in the one space. You can kind of see, oh, that makes sense. Like I was tired there. I had a busy work day, had a crazy weekend, the in-laws over, all this kind of stuff.
Hmm.
It makes sense that you'd be tired for that session, and helps you kind of look at your training as part of your life holistically. And I think that's the smartest thing to do, because they're not separate. It's all the one bucket of energy. So
Yeah.
recognizing that, and it helps you understand why there was nothing in the tank or why you felt amazing. Oh yeah, I just had really good consistent training and it's helped me level up. And that can be really exciting too, especially when you see those improvements. It can be quite rewarding to see those times coming down, or like, the mileage going up, or whatever it is you're trying to focus on.
Hmm. And you have a lot of little sections. I think it's like every month before the month of training, there's like a section and you talk about one thing in sports psychology or one or an exercise or something to do. One of the things that you talk about quite early is negative self-talk.
Hmm.
And exploring how that negative self-talk comes up for you and what you can do about it. What kind of benefits do we get from that? Like for the people that, it's hard to reflect on races that didn't go well. So I'm actually pretty guilty of that myself. Like when a race didn't go well, I just want to, hide my head in the sand for a week, maybe cry about it a bit, and then I just want to forget about it. But like that's not what you're supposed to do. So tell us why.
There's a couple of things there. Okay, so one of my favorite things, well, two kind of onto my favorite topics. Um, but kind of with the one you were finishing there about reflecting on bad races, right? I think that's like, okay. Like it's the most important, if you're going to do anything, is always reflect on a race, no matter if it's good, bad, or ugly. So I got to work with athletes in sports psychology. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and it's one thing I'll ask every single person to do. If you do have a performance, have a race, make sure you do a reflection. We have a reflection at the back of the journal, and we ask three questions. So, what did you learn? How were you brilliant? And what would you change? So if your race was good, what did you learn about that? Like was, oh, it was good weather, it was really good competition, or I really liked the course or whatever it was. How were you brilliant? Okay, I attacked the first half of the race for the first time, or I tried something different, or I moved through the whole way and I like kicked really strong at the end. And then what would I change? Okay, if I did it again, I might go out a little faster, or Alan might go out a little slow, a little more calm, and then I would turn it up later in the race, or whatever it is. And it helps you kind of get your head is thinking about reflecting on the race anyways. It's just what it'll naturally do. So this will take this process of kind of reflecting, that's going to zooming around your head, right? The hours and a couple of, 24 hours after a race. And it actually takes it out of your head and puts it down on paper. And now you can see like concrete things that you've learned or things you'd like to change, and actually a way to make it better the next time. So you're actually then visualizing how to do it better, and not focusing on, oh, I made this mistake and that mistake. No, you're saying, okay, I went out too fast, and the next time I'll go out a little bit more relaxed, and then you're visualizing how to do it the better, solve the problem nearly. And so when it's a bad race, you are taking all that stuff that's going around your head again, and you're asking the same three questions, and then it all just kind of falls into the page. You can kind of make concrete lessons from it, and then your brain can relax and you can move on from it. And I know this sounds really cliche, but you can learn so much from a bad race. You can learn so much of what not to do, and that's a really, I think that's the only positive you can sometimes get from a bad
Yeah.
race. So,
Yeah.
like, I find like sometimes bad races are just bad races, and they just need to be like, they kind of want to be forgotten. But I think if you just try to forget them, your brain doesn't forget, it remembers. So, some part of you is holding on to it. And so, find a way to kind of push it to kind of actually think of this, how the solve it going forward is, it helps that. Um, and it takes that bad feeling, and it's kind of like an alchemy kind of thing, able to like take out, at least you're able to take out a lesson from it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That's at least, it's the only silver lining, you can
We,
do it,
we we do have that. Liz and I have this thing called pity party. So
Hmm.
if you're really down about your race and you have something that goes really badly and you just can't get past the feeling, then okay, don't try and push that away and go into learning. Just have yourself a pity party. You're entitled to it. You've worked for it, and uh, have a pity party. But the pity party has a defined time: 3 days or 5 days or a week. If it's
Yeah.
your if it's your if it's your
You're not
annual
allowed to have
marathon
it
target,
like
you get 1 week. So that's
six months.
the most pity party you're allowed to have. But after that, it's over. You have to put
Yeah,
that
let
pity
it go.
away and go into learning.
Yeah,
That's
I think you did right. I think, I mean, I'm not sure if it's in this journal, but the first edition we had a quote from Paula Radcliffe that, the legend that
mm,
she is. And she said,
yeah,
after a bad race, I do my crying. And like exactly what you just said, Liza. I do my crying for a couple of days then I'm over it, and letting that out, letting that disappointment out. It's just, you care about it. And it's okay to have those feelings. They're there, right? So,
yeah.
um, letting those out. And then if you want to, then when you're ready to move into the learning from it, it does
Mm.
activate the prefrontal cortex, right? Which helps you kind of think rationally and put it into context. And that can help as well with the emotional side of it.
So
Yeah.
you mentioned a quote from Paula Radcliffe there. It just triggered me. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of quotes from
Hmm.
from people
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
every journal page has, or every week
Yeah.
has quotes at the top. Who collected all of those?
Yeah, so that's something that like myself and Lauren have done, over the years. Something that like I don't know, I think I was always just inspired by other people's by quotes, running quotes. And it used to be something I'd put into my own little blank journal. So something when we first started off, we just emailed all our friends because we were both up in the running world at that point. So we just emailed, said, hey, like, why do you keep a journal? Or what's your thoughts on a bad race? Or how do you feel about body image? Or all the different topics, and we just got like Google Docs full of quotes.
Yeah,
Oh,
So
wow. That's amazing.
yeah, and then there was other quotes that we just loved or found that weren't necessarily like, I don't know, it could be like a spiritual guru, and we were not personally
mm,
friends with them, but
yeah,
we're able to kind of take a quote that felt fitting for the topic or the chapter. And it's funny, people would send us emails and be like, I don't know how, but the quote on this week's page always seems to be exactly where I'm at,
yeah.
like where they're traded, the way. So yeah, it's funny. It's just something, I don't know. I find it's always helpful to kind of hear other people's perspective and, recognize, okay, how did they deal with that? And, or what's their thought process around that? And
You could almost do a separate book.
Yeah.
Quotes for all occasions from Ro and Lauren.
yeah, no, I know. Can't beat a good quote.
My personal quote is invented by, I think, me, is weather is a mindset.
Yeah, I think
Mm.
that is invented by you.
My son-in-law quotes it back to me all the time because people go, "Oh no, I'm not going training tonight. It's cold, and Montreal gets cold, or it's raining or whatever." And you go, "Look, weather is a mindset. If your mind is set to go, then the weather is just something you deal with."
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
You talk about a really important topic in your journal about girls during puberty, and I think this was more Lauren that talked about it, but I don't know, maybe you have some thoughts about the topic too. But boys, they hit puberty and they just like it's like a straight upward trajectory of improvement, whereas girls, they don't really do that because our bodies change, and it was mentioned that they tend to quit sport during that time. So
Hmm.
I don't know if you have any messages for, for girls or maybe even women that just think like, oh, they're not good enough because, or that, they've hit a plateau and they just think like, well, that's the best that I will get.
I know, yeah, this is Lauren's kind of more of Lauren's area, but it is something that, if you work with girls, yeah, if you are a girl or if you've been around female athletes, that this can be an issue. And I know in Ireland, girls have higher dropout rates than boys. Now, boys do drop out kind of as a teenagers as well. Um,
Hmm.
but girls, it does seem to be a higher rate of dropout, and it is around that hitting puberty time. And like you said, there can be plateaus there, and the body changes that can feel like people are slowing down or not improving, and that can be quite frustrating and upsetting for young athletes. I think it's quite difficult for young athletes who maybe were competitive before they hit puberty and then they start to
Hmm.
see that change. But it's, Lauren makes the case, and I think I'm in agreement with her. It's withstanding that period of adjustment of those maybe 2 years of body changing, weight changing, but like everything's growing, everything's different, hormonal changes. And on the other side of that, though, through that adjustment period, actually females are stronger after puberty, right? So it's recognizing that there's just this transitional period that's quite vulnerable. And this is where, making sure that it's not always performance focused, right? That like people are participating in sports not just for this excellent time or place or whatever it is, that it is about, well-being and friendship and having fun and community and connectedness, and that like running provides all these, and other sports too provide all these other great benefits, way beyond like a high performance, so it's helping athletes kind of, and young people who are going through those periods, to kind of be kind to themselves and also find other things to really, to focus on and enjoy as they, stay in a sport that they love, and, weather the storm of adolescence, and then not realize actually they're coming out stronger at the end of it.
And can journaling help during that time? Like for if there's a parent that has, a teen girl in sport right now, would a journal be something that could help them get through that?
Yeah, good, because, you can also track in your cycle, as I was mentioning earlier, that there's some parts of your cycle that you'll feel great and strong, and there's other parts you might not feel as good. And recognizing that it ebbs and flows, and that's really natural, and that's okay too, So to be kind to yourself when you're like, you need more sleep or you need some more calories or more rest time, that's okay. And then, noticing within 2 weeks later you could feel like stronger and top of the world, and that, that can be quite tricky to navigate when you're like, well, 2 weeks ago I felt great, like why don't I feel good now?
Hmm.
Once we normalize the menstrual cycle and having these conversations and looking at the research around it, it can help us like understand that and adjust training for it, and adjust, our expectations, and improve the kind of experience around that, just to normalize it as well.
Let me flip the script a little bit as the only male in the room.
Yeah.
It seems to me that, and maybe this risks being sounding sexist, I don't know, but it seems to me that females are better at this journaling thing, at getting in touch with their feelings a little bit more. And maybe it's a feature of the fact that it's pushed in their face through menstrual cycles and hormonal changes and things like that. It seems to me that probably there's a more of a gap with males not doing this as much. Maybe
Mm.
all pros do it. I don't know, but it seems to me that there's maybe less of an occasion where males will do journaling and reflection. One, is this true? Is this just me and my terrible working class background? Or um, if it is true, what can be done about it?
I mean, I can't really answer that, to be honest. It's actually a good question. I can't speak for all males, but I just know that like, if you are performance oriented, right, that actually having that data, having kind of learning from your like experiences,
Hmm.
building on your experience is good for performance. So, besides your feelings and other kind of things, it's actually good for performance. So, and maybe women are a bit more, I don't know if they are a bit more analytical and they kind of need a little bit more of the evidence to have the confidence to go and do something, where guys can sometimes be naturally confident, maybe overconfident,
Yeah.
Um, but one thing a journal does actually help with that is for guys, and I know this anecdotally, and I do think there's some research around this, is sometimes when we don't keep track of our training, we can overestimate what we did. I remember one of my friends telling me, like, she's like, my boyfriend thinks he thinks he's doing 80 miles a week, but like there's no way he is, and because he's not writing it down. So
Hmm.
there's no kind of, but he doesn't care. He thinks he's doing 80 miles a week, right? So
Hmm.
like he's not. Right. So it actually kind of is grounds you in reality as well. And it can help when, if guys can be overestimating what they're able to do, or like the downside of having overconfidence, where it's like you're not actually fully prepared. But I don't know, I can't speak for all males, and I'm sure there's some
Yeah.
guys who keep training journals and will gain the same benefits as females. But I do think, like, have it, knowing thyself, right,
Yeah.
is a is a thing that is good for all humans. So it doesn't matter who you are. Knowing what works for you and what doesn't work for you is very empowering, you
Yeah.
know, and when you kind of rock up to a competition and you're not distracted by what that person's doing over there or that person's doing over there, and you know what you're going to execute on, that's good, you know. So knowing yourself, knowing that, oh, that too much mileage is not good for me, or yoga is not for me, or meditation is for me or not for me, or
Hmm.
Hmm.
pump up music's good for me, or hardcore rap is good for me. Like
Yeah.
whatever it is, like I work with different athletes in different sports, and I'll have like a guy who likes like classical music and, you know, meditations, another kid who's like country music, another kid who likes rap, and it's just like that's what helps them get in their zone. And knowing that helps them kind of buffer the stress around competitions and get themselves in the right headspace. So whatever form that is, I think it can be good for no matter who you are.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I was just looking through my, I made a little confidence journal when we did Strong by Karagacha.
Oh, nice.
This little tiny little
Oh,
journal.
that is tiny.
And I was just going through it before going out running the other day and just reading some of the entries, and like I
Mm,
was psyched to go out, whereas
there you go.
beforehand I kind of wasn't. So
There you
there's a
go.
concrete example of how those kind of things can help you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did notice though in your belief journal that you have, I counted 16 full color photos,
Hmm.
which is a fantastic colorful presentation, but
Hmm.
only one of them had a male runner in it.
Oh gosh.
So is
See, I
that
didn't
be
Yeah.
is
notice
that
that.
because
That would be
is that
Alan.
because Lauren and Ro wrote it and that's just your
Absolutely.
orientation, or
Well, yeah, totally. And maybe because we have only photographs that we have that we own.
yeah,
And we don't have the budget to like we don't have the budget to buy photo, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
yeah,
It
yeah.
is good. No, fair play to you. I think it's a good call. Like, you know, I think when we, and this is why representation matters, right? When something you see imagery and you see only females, like, oh, this is only for women, right?
yeah,
Or we don't see images of women
yeah.
or diversity in the workplace. Oh, that's not for me. So makes sense that you'd look at that and go, is this only for women? Do you know? So
Hmm.
fair
So we're
play.
here
I
to say it's not, and
It's not just for women. There is
get
one
on
male
to it.
photo in there.
yeah.
Um, maybe one, well, I don't know, one of the last topics we can talk about is training, like having goals, because in the book you actually mentioned that the pros think a little bit differently about training and goals, and how they tend to sort of go into training like a bit conservative, like conserving their energy instead of just like trying as hard as they need to hit all the paces. Why is that important? Is that like good for performance? And if so, how do the rest of us know if we're, maybe just pushing a little too hard instead of conserving for the long haul?
I'm not exactly sure which part you're talking about with this. Is this at the start with the goal setting
It
part?
was towards the end.
The goal setting actual part is near the front, but
Yeah.
this is
And
a kind of a
this
closeout, I think.
Yeah, this was
And
Okay.
towards the back. It was
Okay.
just
A little reflection piece.
yeah, it was kind of about a lot of amateurs train basically too hard for what they should be. Like they're more worried about hitting goal paces in their training, and all of that, and less about like the spirit of the training. So,
Mhm.
like having the right effort for the for like the thing you're trying to train in that training session,
Okay.
and having
Okay.
less of a like long-term view, more of a like, oh, I have to hit this right now because
Oh, are you talking? I think are you talking about the pro amateur chart? Like the
yeah, I
pro,
think
the amateur
yes,
mindset?
yes,
Okay,
exactly.
yeah, now I know what you're talking about. Yeah, yeah. So if you look at that little chart, and I can find the page here. Okay, now I'm with you. Sorry, I just when you were referring to
Yeah,
it,
that's okay. I know you wrote an entire book. It's not uncommon to like
no,
maybe
no,
not
no. I do.
remember exactly what was in
No, it's
it.
okay. It's okay. It's okay. So, actually, it's called Think Like a Pro, that part.
Yes.
And if we look at there's a little quiz, right, where your state of mind, are you more of a pro mindset or an amateur mindset? Yeah. So,
That
I
was a
think
good topic I found
yeah.
because yeah.
page 178. So this kind of think like a pro. I read this awesome book for writers called The War of Art.
The Art of War.
No, it was The War of Art. So
Oh,
he
okay.
took a spin on the War of Art,
Yeah.
the Art of War, and called The War of Art. And he kind of, as a writer, he identified the things that set a professional writer beside from an amateur writer. And when I was reading his book and his subsequent book that he kind of talked about the pro amateur, I was like, this is really, really relevant for runners and athletes. And I kind of took his similar framework and some different elements and I went through lots of different things and I referred it back to running and I sent it back to the guy, Stephen Pressfield's his name. And he thought, oh, this is really good because he'd never really made the connection through sport and art before. And what basically comes down to the part you were just referring to there. Let's have a look at this. So basically, he's talking about, I think this is what you're talking about, is the short-term goals versus the long-term. So if you have a bad session, sometimes an amateur can get really, really upset and like, oh, this is really bad. This is really bad. But actually, the pro mindset is, okay, bad sessions happen. We're going to have a bad day and we roll on to the next one. And it's just kind of having that perspective of zooming out and going, this is all part of a slow, steady progression that I'm on. And I don't have to kind of get totally over identified with one bad workout. And because some people feel like it's a crisis. Personally used to think it was a disaster if I had a bad workout. And I wish I had
Yeah.
this in mind because it actually helps recognize, yeah, it's normal to have a bad workout. Obviously you can reflect on that and understand what's going on and then move on to the next one. So there's a couple of things like that. What else? Emotional kind of way of dealing with bad races, like a pro mindset would be like you vent and move on, like you guys talked about. You have your time, Paula Radcliffe modeling to us, cry, move on.
Yeah. I think
Um,
I heard or I saw it somewhere like that your pity party needs to have a time limit. And so, yeah, I thought that was a good
yeah, yeah.
it was a good thing. Because otherwise it's like it'll be a little endless. And but not that, you're gonna cry for 6 months straight, but it's as if like it's kind of never like put away. It's sort of like there, and then I don't know, like 2 months, a month later, you'll be doing some workout. It's like long after your race, you've already thought of your next goal, but now, you're kind of thinking back to this bad race and you have another little pity party. And it's like, it's almost like it's endless because you haven't put it away. So
Mhm.
this idea that you can just sort of like put an end to it, you have a time limit and you're not allowed to go beyond that. It was, I don't know. For me,
Yeah,
it just seemed like such a good
yeah.
idea.
Yeah, as an ex-manager, I think the goal setting works well in this context because if you've done a reflection and you've done some long-term goal setting and you go, well, these are building blocks, and if I'm going to reach for my goal, I'm going to have to do things I've maybe never done before. And if I've got a failed session here, that's one failed session is a good sign that I'm trying to reach. I mustn't overreach, but it's a sign that I'm not being deliberately too soft on myself.
Mhm.
And then you can put it back into your goal context. So that's where the goal setting early on, and I noticed you got that early on in your journal. The goal setting
Mhm.
early on works really, really powerfully for you.
Yeah,
And it's very easy to set goals using your technique because you can just sort of scribble it in a box. And then you ask the next question and you scribble the answer in the box.
Yeah, that's the whole idea because find the elements of the goal setting, is like it's the why, what like everyone comes back to the why, right? But it is like, why are you trying to do this? Like, why do you want to write 3 hours, Elizabeth? That's what on the
Mm.
spot.
I guess, yeah, well, it's a good question. I don't know. It's a nice round number. I guess it was like the seed was first planted by my previous coach, because I had gone from running at the beginning of my marathoning. I ended up running, 3 hours and 50. And then I had gone back to school, and so I joined the school cross country club. And then the year after, I ran 3:15. So it was like
Mhm.
35-minute improvement in 1 year. And so the coach at the time was like, "Oh, well, I mean," and I wasn't even like, I'm going to say, quote unquote, specifically training for marathons. So I was doing cross country training, and then I would do like are like I would just make my long run longer than most people did.
Mhm.
And then so yeah, so I thought, oh, well, with some specific training, like there's no reason I shouldn't be able to run this 3 hours. And he was kind of I kind of always knew him as being like the like his goals being just a tad aggressive. Like he would tell me what he thinks I could do, let's say in any race, and I would always kind of be a little bit doubtful of what he was telling me. But then like a lot of times it happened, like it worked.
Mhm.
So I was like, well, I guess, if he thinks I can do it, it means that I should be able to. And then, the year after it didn't happen, I actually ended up getting to the start line tired. Like I was just kind of overcooked, I guess, by the marathon training. And yeah, and it took me a really long time even to just break that 3:15 that I had done on like what most people would say like not marathon training. I mean, I was still running a lot, but I wasn't doing some of the typical like marathon pace long runs and all of these things. I wasn't doing any of that. I was doing like fast 5K. We did tempo runs, but they would be like 20-minute tempo runs, not like
Yeah.
an hour tempo run.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And you responded to that training though, right? So there's something
yeah.
you like that worked for you in that, right? So then
Yeah.
you, oh, I need to throw that all out and go do something different, and it didn't necessarily work. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there's something there as well.
I guess it's your Olympic gold medal, you know? That's why you want to do it because it's some high goal that's not quite completely
Yeah.
out of your reach, but you have to reach to your limit to get it. And there's something,
Yeah, and I
I don't
think
know,
at this
immensely
point,
satisfying in that. It's why you guys go out and train to get into the Olympics. You know, your dream one day is to get on the podium and somebody puts a medal around your neck.
yeah.
And that's kind of it's our Olympic gold medal.
At this point also it feels like it can't be unattainable, like I'm so close, but because I've since gone down to like just under 3:05, but it's still 5 minutes. And since it took me more than a decade to take 10 minutes off, I'm kind of like, wow, this last 5 minutes is gonna take forever.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Right. So it's you've been kind of chasing for like 10 years. Yeah. So I mean it'd be good for you to like, why getting clear for yourself, like why do you want to do it? Is it this idea like that's, you have the potential to do it and you want to realize that potential, or like is there something else in that? Because I think if it's not meaningful to you, it's hard to just why am I doing this again, right?
Yeah,
But
comes too
kind of
hard.
making your own meaning out of it and recognizing like, yeah, this is a challenge I have set for myself or whatever that is. It's easy to that will fuel the kind of work that's required to kind of achieve it. And when's your next go of it? I'd love to do a little session with you and if you want.
yeah, I'm thinking of a marathon maybe in October. There's one that's local to us that's pretty flat, and it's October like 5th,
Nice.
really
Oh,
the beginning, which is like around here it's like good weather for
yeah,
marathon
yeah.
races because the big summer heat is usually mostly over, but it's not like too cold so you can still, wear shorts and a t-shirt.
She would really
Mhm.
benefit from a session with you. We can't. We can't.
First thing I was
I
going to
think. I
say, you
think she
need to
would.
do
I
some
mean,
cross country training by the sounds of it over the summer.
Yeah, maybe that's what I need to do. I don't know
Throw
because
away the
yeah.
watch. There you go, guys.
Well, you
yeah.
know what? In cross country, that's pretty much what you do because even if you're wearing a watch, like we would do some random training. Like we would go to this park because there was a hill and it would be run up the hill. There was a soccer field at the top, and you'd have like when you get to the top, so you're running hard up the hill. When you get to the top, you've got to try and run around the soccer field like at, I don't know, 5K speed. I mean, but it wasn't speed because like you couldn't tell what speed you were going. You didn't even know how far it was. So,
Yeah. Effort,
yes,
effort,
yeah, it
effort.
was effort. So it was just,
There you go.
so I don't know, maybe I need to do some random training that has no paces in it.
Oh
Throw away
no.
my watch and just run with Alan, and Alan can manage all my pacing.
Find that field.
Well, one of the problems though is that from a mindset point of view, Liz and I are quite different. So we talk a lot, but what you hear is you hear different views, not
Yeah,
things that
yeah.
resonate with you necessarily. Like I'll
Yeah.
go, let's push to the front, Liz. When the gun goes, we'll be near the front. Let's push forward. And Liz will be going, oh no, 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 we'll go off too
Lots of
quick. We'll
elbows
go
over
off too
there.
quick. Yeah. So yeah,
And you're
she,
probably good match like that because,
yeah.
I don't know if you guys took the quiz. I'd love to, maybe you'll email me after to tell me you took the worrier warrior quiz. I
Yeah,
don't know if you took
yeah.
that, and maybe I don't know
I can
what you
tell you now that
Not yet, but
I'll be mostly warrior with some warrior, and Liz will be mostly warrior with some warrior.
yes. I
Yeah,
was
Very
reading
good.
those questions and I'm like, yeah, I think I
yeah,
feel it. I fall into
yeah.
that worrier. I mean,
Yeah.
occasionally I'm a warrior, but mostly
Yeah,
I'm
well,
a
do you know what's so
worrier.
funny about this? We did when we made that quiz, we sent it to all our professional runner friends as well. And I
Hmm.
saw the people who filled it in, and I was like, well, there's an medalist, the Olympic medalist as a warrior, and there's an Olympic medalist as a warrior. And I just
Yeah,
thought, there you go. They figured out what works for them. And
exactly.
you balance each other out lovely. So
Mm,
that's what I always think. You need training partners who are warriors to get everyone there on time, da, 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 da. And then you
yeah.
need the warriors to come in and just like, you know.
Yeah, it was pretty funny because when I was in university, so I had this little group. Like we did a lot of group projects, and the classes towards the like in the last 2 years of the bachelor degree, they were all kind of with the same people mostly, because you were more specialized at that point, and I like we had this little group of like 4 or 5 people. We would always try and pair up together for the group projects. And I was always the one I would set these fictional deadlines because my absolute nightmare would be to have to pull an all-nighter because like my brain just doesn't function like that. And like I'd
Mhm.
get too stressed and I wouldn't be able to do anything good. So
Yeah.
so I would fix us all these artificial deadlines ahead of time. And I think I do that with Alan. I'm kind of like, okay, Alan, you have to start reading this book now.
No, it's good. Right. And Alan probably appreciates it because otherwise Alan would be staying up all
Yeah,
night.
I'll be staying up all night trying to finish the book
Yeah.
the day
And
before.
so that is more of like a wiring as well. Like, and I can go into all you can go into all that, but like some people need that stress to actually focus, to
Mm-hmm.
actually get the work done where you've already kind of got natural levels of that. So too much of that would flood you and
Mm,
you would be in effect like
yeah,
out of your zone.
yeah,
Where Alan needs that to get him in the zone, not to
Yeah.
analyze anyone. But I'm not analyzing anyone. I'm just
Try,
saying, yeah, people are different. Yeah.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
trying to get you out of here eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. No worries.
You've been going for 10 years with this journal. So, is there any specific feedback that you've had that kind of resonates with you that you'd like to share with that might be useful to listeners?
Mhm. Yeah, so Lauren and I selfishly wrote it for ourselves as like this is the journal we wanted to have like as athletes who had aspirations in high performance, right? And that was our kind of bullseye. We're writing it for that kind of mindset and people who had big goals like us. And it was so interesting and so beautiful and so I was blown away by the emails I'd get from people who are like, I won this journal at a road race. Somebody gifted to me at a road race. And then I like set goals and then I like became an Olympian or something. Or like people would just come out of the woodwork with like journal helped me get my BQ or this thing helped me with all these different things with my injury or getting through this thing or that thing. And we were just like, this is crazy. Like the emails and outpouring of people, the reasons why they used it, the things they got out of it. So that was just way beyond what we'd ever expected. And
Hmm.
it's just such a nice thing that it's hard to kind of take that in because you're like, oh, we made over here. And then it's like, oh wow, I had this other kind of
Yeah, didn't
reach.
see that
Had
coming.
a
Yeah,
life of its own, basically,
Yeah,
once it was out
exactly. A
there in the
life of its
world.
own. Yeah, and I'm just kind of like, oh, that's awesome. So it's just a beautiful thing. Yeah. So yeah, the running community is great. And I'm one of those runners now who don't run for like specific goals or anything like that.
hmm,
And I still think, journaling now is something that does help me kind of with my day-to-day life, managing kids and work and my own well-being. And when you get out of the habit, you kind of do lose that kind of connection with self in a little way. So keeping a journal is good for different phases of your life and just kind of just space for yourself to kind
yeah,
of gain perspective on all the things you're trying to manage. So things can evolve and change, and running is one of those friends for life, right? It can be,
yep.
you can experience it at different things, different ways. And now it's me and my dog here. She's after just coming in.
Aw.
So now it's us out for
Aw.
runs.
That's really
She's
Yeah, and
adorable.
it's a cool thing. It's a cool thing. It never ends. So yeah.
And where would you like to direct people to get a copy?
everybody wants one now.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get hassled for my copy.
Yeah, so I can, I think you can link it through the Believe Training Journal website, Believe I
perfect.
Am. I think there's links in there to, lots of different sellers and stuff. So
We'll
uh,
yeah,
yeah,
we'll
We'll
link that
link
in the
that in
show
the
notes.
notes.
Yeah.
great. Thank you so much. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me on. And
If people want to follow you, are you up to stuff these days, or are you just living the best life in Ireland on Instagram like everybody else?
yeah, yeah. I'm under the Instagram handle of actually Believe Training Journal. So
Nice.
Okay,
I do post a few pictures of Ireland here and there and my dog and some running.
Okay.
But yeah, happy to connect with people there.
okay,
So
great,
Perfect.
thank you
Well,
both so
thank
much.
you. Thanks so much for
fantastic.
spending time with us and
Yeah,
have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much. Talk to you guys soon. Keep in touch,
cheers.
okay?
Okay,
Absolutely.
Connect again. Happy to do that little session we talked about.
Okay.
All
brilliant.
right. Bye, guys. Thank
Cheers, Ro.
you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
What a nice lady.
I know. She was fantastic.
Believe Training Journal by pro runners, ex-pro runners, Lauren Fleshman and Roisin McGettigan-Dumas. The cool thing about the journal, I think, is that, or one cool thing about it, is that Ro and Lauren have sort of filled in their own examples at the beginning, showing you the different ways you can use it. And they use it in quite different ways. And they've actually got examples of when they originally used it and also when just nowish, now that they're not pro runners and their goal setting, for example, is not win the gold medal. Their goal setting is, continue to have a great lifestyle through running or whatever. And then filling in the journals in terms of weekly, how that fills in. It's good to have an example. It's easier then to go, okay, I can just do that. And then it's not so onerous to use and you get the benefits without not too much effort. So that's cool. The journal pages are not dated, so you can jump in any time. So starting now, you can just jump in and you can date them up yourself. It's not just something for serious runners. I think everybody has their own hopes and dreams at their own realistic level. We talked a little bit today about 3-hour marathons, but somebody else could have, well, I'd like to run my first 5K, or I'd like to,
Or
I
their
don't
first
know,
marathon.
whatever. And the advice in the workbook sections that occur every month, they're sort of short but really punchy. So there's something of value in a few pages. You don't have to read a whole book. You just get 2 or 3 pages of, oh, okay, yeah, that feels cool. So there's plenty of motivation. And we never mentioned, but right at the back, there are pace charts. And there's actually a race calendar of major races that you could aspire to doing, I guess. The whole thing's beautifully presented with lots of color, so it's sort of super positive color pictures, etc. All in all, high quality tool.
Yeah, I guess I will just echo all of that, but I'll add it's got a nice little compact form factor. It's I don't know. I
Oh
don't know how big
yeah,
this could be. It's about I
yeah,
guess
it's a
it's
good
like
point.
5 inches by 5.5 inches. It almost looks like a square, but it's not quite a square. But yeah, it's very small. Like you can throw it in a gym bag or
Hmm.
throw it in any bag or keep it in your glove compartment. If like the only place that you have quiet time is in the car when you get to work, well, you just keep it in your glove compartment.
Yeah,
It's like a cute little form factor. And also the actual pages for the journaling are not very complicated. They're like it's basically a week spread out over 2 pages, and it's just a lot of like blank space. So you can really decide what you want to write in it or keep track of or whatever. And it doesn't even have to be the same thing every day. You can change it because it's just basically like writing space.
yeah, and because of the blank, that's why it's important that the examples are there, I think.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you see a blank space and you go, oh, what do I
What am I
write?
supposed to write?
Yeah.
I love those weekly quotes from, famous runners or
Mhm.
coaches or, just some good inspiration. And there's also a great reminder that not every training day is supposed to be good because, we tend to really focus on those training days that are not as good, but you're supposed to have those in a way because otherwise, like we said, you're not really pushing your limits if every training day is good. There's a lot of information about psychology, which is something that was really useful. It's a lot of information, but in like short little segments, which is fun because really you just have to read one segment a month. And it's, it's a couple pages each time, like maybe 3-4 pages of reading. Yeah, just seems like a very useful tool. I mean, obviously we just started kind of thinking about using it, so haven't done any of the quizzes really thoroughly yet or anything. But
You're a worrier.
But I know I'm a worrier. Every so often, one of the questions will be like, "I'm a warrior," but there's not many of those.
See, I was right.
You were right. You know me so well. It's crazy.
Well, we know each other quite well these days.
Okay,
good. Outro.
Outro.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Running Book Reviews. A big thank you to the publisher Velo Press for providing review copies of the book, and a big thanks to Ro for spending time with us today. If you'd like to leave us feedback about how we can improve the podcast, or suggest a book, or give us any comments at all, you can contact us on our social media. We are Running Book Reviews on Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter we are reviews_running. Please remember to follow us on social media so we know you care, and you can find out about new episodes, or you can just subscribe to the episodes on whatever your favorite streaming platform is. If you've been listening to us for a while and you'd like to help us out, there are a few ways. If you're enjoying the podcast, spread the word. Tell your friends, share a link. I mean, if you enjoyed this one that we've just done, just link it now and send it to somebody who you think maybe wouldn't read it. That'll help us enormously. You can leave us reviews on Apple Podcast, or you can rate us out of 5 stars on Spotify. We're also on Buy Me a Coffee. You can basically go to buymeacoffee.com, look for a creator called Running Book Reviews, and find a lot of add-ons and extras free of charge. And there's a button to buy us a coffee if you want. That's all for now from Running Book Reviews. Bye.
Bye.